Oh, my cat is up a tree. Jesus Christ.
Cat?
Yeah, I said it on the podcast before, man.
I don't listen to you.
We haven't mentioned this in months, Bill, but I feel like it's time to talk about licorice again.
Oh, God.
So I've been getting messages from people sending me pictures of various licorice flavoured treats.
Mm-hmm.
And like someone sent me, I think it was licorice flavoured Twizzlers, which we don't get here in Ireland. And
yeah, what are Twizzlers?
I believe they're American sweet.
But like what are they?
I don't know. Sugar ropey things. I don't know. I've no idea. But the point is we don't get them here. And then someone months ago sent me a picture of licorice root. So like the raw form licorice comes in and you can chew like the bark of the tree sort of thing.
Oh, someone on Twitter, wasn't it?
Yes, on Twitter, yes.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I was like, wait a minute, there's so many delicious licorice things out there that I can't experience because I live in Ireland. So I was half thinking about setting up a P.O. box so people could send me licorice. So I just want to bring that up and put it out there. Would anyone who lives in a country that has particularly nice / strange licorice, would they be up for sending me stuff? If so, let me know via the usual means like Twitter and Facebook and that. And if there's enough of a sort of like, oh yeah, we'll totally send you something, I will totally set up a P.O. box and details will be in the next show. So yeah, I just want to start with that. Hashtag Team Licorice, P.O. Box time. Let's do this. Licorice for life.
Okay.
That's the first point I wanted to bring up. A total non sequitur. Let's get into follow up proper, yeah?
Okay.
All right. So the last show we talked about techno-osteomancy.
Mm-hmm. This is your magic system. Your kind of ritual magic inspired cyberpunk body horror.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. And I think people like this, or at least liked the episode, because there was an awful lot of comments in the subreddit, which was awesome. And I just wanted to talk about two bits of feedback we had on the magic system, which I think are particularly good. In a general sense, lots of people... Remember we had a problem with the scarcity?
The scarcity?
The scarcity of X. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. And I was saying, there's no reason, because since it doesn't get used up, etc.
Exactly, yeah. So a lot of people addressed that in the subreddit, and the common thing was it's either radioactive and or it has a half-life.
Right, so it's not actually being used up, but it runs out in its own right. Okay.
Yeah, so there can be like
that makes sense.
Yeah, so there can be an infinite supply within the gas giant, but it will just decay away after a period of time, which is a very elegant solution to that. So that was the general thing, but Dado42 from the Reddit brought up this interesting idea of grave robbers, which I thought was really cool, because like the rebels will have to retrieve the X. So he had this image of people going and breaking into cemeteries like midnight, like digging up graves, like real sort of like dark fantasy. And I was like, that's really good.
I can dig that.
I can really dig that.
And actually, that was definitely an accidental pun, but I'm really proud of myself now that I've noticed it.
Oh, someone pointed out in the subreddit that there was like toxic amounts of bear puns last time.
Was there?
Yeah, because we were discussing bear flags, and I kept saying stuff like "bear with me, Bill," or like "it's unbearable," like totally unintentional. But listening to the editing, when I was editing, I picked up on all this, and I was like, "Oh God, it's actually painful to listen to." Like every 2 seconds, like whoa, bear with me, Bill.
Hold on though, the whole thing about the X is that it doesn't get used up.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a half-life. So what kind of scale is that half-life on? Because if it decays too quickly, then there's no point in it doesn't make sense to retrieve it from the bodies.
Yeah, so you'd obviously have to pitch it in that it is fast, it is slow enough so as to introduce an element of scarcity, but not so quick that it's just, you don't need to retrieve it.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's just a matter of scale, yeah.
Yeah, you just pick a random sort of, well, not random, but pick a time frame that suits, basically.
Yeah, okay, yep. I can buy that. Do you want to hear something kind of cool, sort of connected, I think it's connected to grave robbing.
Alright, go for it, yeah.
So, in the early 1800s, and around a little bit earlier and a little bit later, there was a thriving industry of getting bodies, human bodies, and giving them to medical students or people who were studying anatomy.
Right.
Because there wasn't like a public system of, hospitals and universities having bodies to be examined, etc. And people who wanted to study anatomy kind of had to do it on their own dime.
Okay.
Right? And so there was essentially a profession where you would dig up bodies or steal bodies from places and sell them to doctors and medical students and trainee physicians and things. And they were called resurrection men.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Isn't that great?
Resurrection men. Love it. That's really weird because it seems like a really dodgy practice, but for a good reason. So people can learn more about science. I think it's really weird.
It's kind of weird from a modern eye. And there were two dudes. I think they were Scottish. Hold on. I actually have the article. Yes, here. Guys called Burke and Hare, who were... Oh no, they were Irish immigrants to Scotland that were resurrection men, but they got their bodies a different way.
Oh, how do they get their bodies?
They just murdered people.
Oh, great. That's ridiculous.
It's like, oh well, we need a supply of bodies to sell to this doctor who wants to do some dissection. I guess we can just murder dudes. And that's what they did.
That seems like you couldn't really pay me enough to take that risk. Surely robbing graves is just a lot safer. Maybe they're both like sociopaths and they're just like, yeah, whatever.
Possibly. There's also a lot of logistics and overheads involved. You have to get the shovels, you have to schedule all the time. It's a labor intensive. Like you have to expend a lot of energy and labor to dig up a grave. But I mean, just knock someone over the head in an alley, handy.
Yeah. But then there's always imprisonment. That's quite a big risk to try and manage there.
Oh no, they weren't imprisoned.
Oh, they were just killed, were they?
They were just executed.
Yeah, that's actually very ironic. Well, is that ironic? I never used the word irony properly.
I'm not sure if it is irony.
It's okay.
Maybe dramatic irony or kind of it's hilariously appropriate.
Hilariously appropriate. We'll go with that one. So yeah, there you go. Grave robbers. A very, very weird profession. Dado42, he went on after talking about grave robbers to talk about essentially X being made in sort of rolling meth labs.
Yeah.
Which was another awesome addition because I had this idea that the artisans were going to be stationary. And he brought up the fact that the government would just find them and shut it down. And because they were the source of the contraband, that would put an end to the supply. And he was saying one way to circumvent that is to just have them, like, literally have their meth labs or their X labs on the metro while it's rolling, so it's in constant movement. And I was like, this is brilliant. And for some reason, I keep thinking about My Neighbor Totoro in this. I don't know why, right? Because My Neighbor Totoro has nothing to do with rolling meth labs. But that cat bus reminds me a little bit of what about Dado was saying. So
I've never seen My Neighbor Totoro, but I'm familiar with pictures of the cat bus.
Yeah, you know the cat bus, yeah. Yeah, the meth labs would not be cat buses at all. But for some reason my head just made that connection. I was like, yeah, I like this idea. It's great. So Dado42 had some cool comments there. But I think the greatest addition to this is via email.
Mm-hmm.
From, let me just call it up here, from a John Overcash,
okay,
which is a brilliant second name.
That's a pretty cool name.
And I'm not going to read out his email address because we said in our contact us form that we'll always keep email addresses private, but his email address is really cool. Anyhow, so if it's okay with you, Bill, I would like to, it's only about 2 paragraphs long. I would like to actually read this out because I really enjoy his scenario.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, okay. So, X, whatever it is chiral. It comes in 2 different forms. Both forms release a sort of radiation, the magic, but one form is benign to humans and the nanobots are designed to use the radiation. The other form is benign to the nanobots, but is similar to nuclear radiation on humans.
Huh.
The government has found a way to separate out the 2 forms and give it to its soldiers, the pure benign kind, whereas the common folk can only get the racemic mixture as it is mined from the gas giant. Thus, they can get the effects, but then they die of something akin to leukemia and or bone cancer after a certain time. The remaining X can still be retrieved as it isn't completely used up, but there is a half-life associated with it. Hopefully this satisfies the rarity and needing to retrieve dead bodies while still allowing for gradual using up of the resources. Finally, the leader of the resistance was once a soldier for the government, or possibly a rest subject, which is why he has the pure stuff. After learning of the atrocities of the government, he begins his rebel force. The government's position, of course, is that he had an adverse effect to the nanobots, went crazy, and he's now convincing people to kill themselves with his conspiracy theories when they are just trying to manage an obviously dangerous resource. Yeah?
Okay.
Which I really like. And he goes on, I won't read out the rest of it, but he goes on to say that this idea of chirality is really cool because it parallels with, and I didn't realise this, drug chirality in Europe with drugs like formaldehyde, where you have one version that's incredibly dangerous and one version that's like benign.
Thalidomide.
Yeah. Thalidomide. I can never pronounce it. Yeah. So
That's the one that caused all the birth defects.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I really like that because there's like a real world sort of thing. You can bring in a bit of commentary there.
Yeah.
So I thought he had taken the idea of this half-life and really ramped up the scenario. So I thought that was a really, really cool email. So thank you, John Overcash. I really, really enjoy that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Bill? Do you think good scenario, bad scenario?
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like how it develops it and it adds depth to both sides of the conflict, but without nailing down a specific interpretation.
Yeah, and it also it fills in the gaps of my scenario as well very well. Mm-hmm. So I really like that. I think it was great. So I want to thank everyone. I know I can't go through and read read out on air every single comment on the subreddit, but I want to thank everyone for getting involved and improving it. It was awesome. Really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So have you got anything to follow up, Bill?
Remember a few months, well, actually probably quite a while ago now, you asked me a question, does the Lord of the Rings count as mythology?
Yes.
And I said no, but I suggested that there are other kind of things in pop culture which could be extended to share some similarities with mythology. Mm-hmm. Doctor Who and comics and things.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to revise what I said about the Lord of the Rings a little bit, because I said that it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't mythology, because it's a single author, so there's a limited scope of interpretations of... Let me phrase this correctly. There's a limited scope of intent, of authorial intent, using the premise and using the setting and the characters.
Yeah.
And it's making a kind of single statement. But that's actually not really true.
Oh, how so?
Because there isn't just one author. Because there's films.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of adapted media, based on the original thing, is kind of what I was talking about when I was saying why the novels don't really count as mythology by themselves. But I mean, I would say that, Lord of the Rings, the novel, isn't mythology, but there is a sort of mythological element to its place in culture and the way that the implications of something like the film and the subtext will be different to what is in the novel because they're by a different creator or a different team of creators. And you can extend that even further to fanfic.
Oh, is there significant Lord of the Rings fanfiction? I've never came across it.
I don't know if there's a huge community, but it does exist. And there's one very interesting example, which I've only read the first few pages of, but I've talked to a few people about, called The Last Ring Bearer. That was originally written in Russian, a guy called Kirill Yesov.
Okay.
And the premise of it is that Tolkien's work, The Lord of the Rings, is a piece of political propaganda.
Wow.
Written by the victors of the Gondor-Mordor conflict. And it's been specifically written to dehumanize the losers, the Sauron's side. And this is written in the aftermath from the perspective, I think, of like people from Mordor, and the like oppressive genocidal neighbor they have is Gondor.
Oh, that's awesome.
Something I might not be getting the exact details correct, but it's something along those lines.
But the premise in and of itself is amazing there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think part of the idea is that Mordor was going through like the beginnings of an industrial revolution. Or they were more technology, they had more artifice. And that fits in some ways with some interpretations of Tolkien's pastoralism and Tolkien's anti-technological views.
Yeah, definitely. Huh. That's amazing.
Which is a real interesting thing. And so I was thinking about that and about fanfic and how that makes... and how that provides a counter-argument to what I was saying about there being a limited set of intended meanings and a limited set of interpretations. And I think fanfic is something that gets looked down on a lot by people. You know, I think that it's just... it's just like written by teenagers in their bedrooms, and it's got no literary merit or whatever.
Well, some of it is.
Yeah, I mean, but 90% of everything is rubbish. So.
Well, this is very true. Yeah.
And I'm not really that interested in its actual own literary merit, but I've realised that it's a form of analysis. It's a form of creative analysis. It's people coming up with their own stories, which are their interpretations of the characters. So it's no different to writing an essay, like an academic essay about the interaction between various people. It's done in the form of a story instead.
Yeah, I'm fully with you on that. I think that's totally fair. Your point about, just to go back a little bit, your point about Lord of the Rings, leaving aside the fanfic for a second, like imagining the fanfic doesn't exist around Lord of the Rings and we only had the novels and the films.
No. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Would the films differ enough from the original work to include them in this definition of mythology? Because my gut reaction would be no. And I thought you were going to stop at the films and not go into fanfic. And I was like, yeah, but surely that doesn't count. Do the films, in addition to the books, under your definition, would they constitute as mythology?
I think looking at it from the point of view is this work mythology, and is this work mythology isn't a useful way to think about it. I'm saying that the Lord of the Rings as an overall thing encompasses different works, and as such that brings it closer to mythology in the way that I didn't really address in my previous answer.
Okay. So yeah, so it's not black and white here. It's
I'm not saying the films are mythology, because that would be the same problem with what I said about the books themselves. But the Lord of the Rings is a cultural idea, originating in these books, sure, but also existing in a lot of other forms. And as such, then, yeah, I think that makes it something like mythology. And, and there's games as well. There's Lord of the Rings, like Lego, probably. There's all of these different ways of engaging with that concept.
Okay, so let me pose another question to you, Bill.
Yep.
Is everything then coming close to mythology? Because, like, if just in my head, I'm thinking of various films, books, etc., and nearly always there's an extension of ideas surrounding it. Like, they branch out into films, and there's going to be some merchandise, like you said, Lego around all these things. What's stopping everything from coming towards mythology? Nothing. So, okay, all right. So would you be happy with the assertion that everything
No, not everything, because most things are never famous. Most things don't get this exposure in multiple media.
Right. Okay.
It's when things that they carry a certain weight, so they can begin to be considered from a variety of angles. I mean, like if I'm going to look around my room here and pick up an obscure book.
Okay.
Give me a second.
None of them are obscure. They're all Harry Potter.
Well, yeah, everything is kind of reasonably well known. Okay, I've got a book over there called I can't read it. It's Vanderbilt or Vanderberg or something.
Right.
Which is a story about an old survivalist in somewhere like in Washington State or something, fighting a Russian invasion of America.
Okay.
Oh, obviously isn't, because no one's ever heard of it.
Right.
So there's no way you can say it has the same kind of weight, because you don't get people taking, images of iconic characters from that book and wearing it on t-shirts, or, making Lego versions, or you don't get fanfic about it.
Yeah, but that's just a function of time. Like, in, several hundred years.
That book is ancient. It's probably going to, remain obscure forever.
Well, yeah, but there's an awful lot of time left to come, and maybe someone in the very, very distant future will pick through our culture and happen to come across that and be all like, yeah, this is really cool, and then they start using that to develop. So,
okay, well then, even if that does happen, there's 1,000 other books it won't happen to.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. This is interesting. You're making me think about the amount of things that go towards this. Which is something that, I would have always thought mythology is always Norse and Greek stuff, and that's it. And I would never have thought about it in a modern context, and would certainly not have realised how much stuff could tend towards the umbrella term mythology.
There are probably very strong counter-arguments here that they're not actually used as means of passing on information about the world the way I'm sure mythology was. It had creation myths and stuff, and that it kind of passed on cultural information through generations. But in a way, it is identity forming. Like, being a fan of Star Wars is a big part of a lot of people's identity, and it's just funny. Can you describe to me Darth Vader? What is Darth Vader?
He's a villain from a relatively famous film series.
Yeah, and what is he in he's a villain, and he's super evil.
He's super evil, yes.
And and he's really, really awful, and there's this whole redemption story about him towards the end and everything.
Yeah.
But then you see all these cartoons of Darth Vader playing with toddler Luke and Leia. So he represents this kind of comical idea of fatherhood as well, because he is so evil, and it's such a contrast to that fact about him, that he is a father is such great contrast to his actual portrayal and his actual actions. Yeah. And that's something that has been, so those comics are something that have gone away from his portrayal in the films, and it's using that character in a different way. Yeah,
reimagining him to tell a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
Point. Yeah.
But the facts are still there that he is the father of these characters, and that the kernel of the fact that he is evil is still there, because it's kind of funny to see him teaching Luke to drive the X-Wing, or I suppose it's probably a TIE fighter, but
to drive. I'm not sure drive is the right word there, man. Fly.
I think it is in the context of the discussion we're having, because dads teach their sons to drive, Edgar.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Is I'm assuming then, under this sort of in regards to this discussion, James Bond is relatively like that as well, relative mythology sort of thing, because that's been reimagined by many people. It has commentary on the current culture, or at least the current for each of the films. So many things.
Possibly. I'd feel like it doesn't really have the same weight.
But again, would there not be a monstrous amount of fanfic around James Bond as well?
Possibly. I can't exactly explain why it doesn't feel the same to me, but maybe.
Yeah, it feels weird to me as well. This is why I bring it up. It feels like a strange one that seems to fit what you've discussed, but something about it just seems wrong.
Something about James Bond feels wrong.
No, something about James Bond as mythology. James Bond feels wrong, yeah. James Bond in and of itself is fine.
Well,
they're a bit boring, and they're a bit formulaic, and the older stuff is...
a bit massively sexist.
And the older stuff is a bit backwards in its intent, yes. Is the new James Bond... I haven't watched James Bond since, GoldenEye, The World Is Not Enough.
Oh, really? You haven't seen any of the Daniel Craig ones?
I haven't seen any of the Daniel Craig ones. I hear that Daniel Craig brought about huge change. To be more specific, he didn't bring about huge change, but when he came in, huge change was brought about.
That's true in a sense, yeah.
Okay. Have they become slightly less obnoxious?
I haven't seen the most recent one. I saw his first 3 films. I really like Casino Royale.
Okay.
And I quite liked Quantum of Solace. There's some kind of stupid, like real pretentious film school director things in it. Like there's 4 major fight scenes, or four major action sequences, and one is like takes place on a boat.
Right.
No, so the first one takes place, it's a car chase at the very beginning, kind of around a mountain and through caves.
Okay.
And the second one, it takes place on a boat.
Right.
And the third one takes place, it's kind of like a plane chase.
Okay.
And the last one takes place in a burning building.
What's
Right.
weird? What's weird about this?
There's an elemental theme to it.
Oh, right.
Oh, really? That is so cheap and juvenile. That really annoyed. Like, I think it's a fine film, but like stuff like that really annoyed me.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like he's like really smug about it. And Skyfall, I absolutely loathed. I absolutely hated Skyfall.
Is that the latest one?
No, that's the second last one. I haven't seen the latest one.
Second last one. What's the latest one called?
Spectre.
Spectre. Okay.
It looked promising, and I got the impression that Blofeld would be a villain in it again, and I quite like the Blofeld character.
Now, hang on. Are you talking about Spectre or are you talking about Skyfall?
Spectre. I got the impression that Blofeld was a character. I might be wrong about that, but
Well, what was wrong with Skyfall? Going back to Skyfall for a second.
so I really didn't like Javier Bardem's character in it, and I thought he was kind of a bit of a creepy gay stereotype. I didn't like that at all.
Okay.
He didn't really make any sense. He was the villain was too kind of campy slick. Like he like everything just kind of worked out really well in ridiculous circumstances for the villain.
So he was just really artificial.
Yeah, I found him quite artificial. I didn't like the Q character. They gave Bond kind of a plucky hacker sidekick, which was terrible. Although I that actor is fine. I'm nothing against that actor. I just really hated the character. And I really like this interpretation of Bond, that Bond isn't the same guy, that it's a different person taking on the identity of Bond. So that like Sean Connery and Roger Moore are actually different people. There's the same continuity within the films, but they're different people.
Yeah.
Who are both playing Bond. And then, because a lot of the Bonds are quite different. Like Timothy Dalton is like quite dark and violent.
Yeah.
And an underrated Bond, I think.
I think a lot of people think that as well, yeah.
Oh, so if enough people think you are underrated, does it stop being true?
I think we haven't gotten to a critical mass, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think we're below the point at which it is common knowledge that Timothy Dalton is a brilliant Bond.
And Skyfall undoes that interpretation pretty.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not great.
I can't see a way to view Skyfall without it being that Bond has been the same person since Dr. No.
Yeah, for like... How many years has this been going?
Skyfall came out it was the 50th, so about 54 years.
Yeah, same guy for 54 years. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
Well, he started when he was like 17, and now he's 71.
He's 71 and he looks like Daniel Craig. Yeah, super. Good stuff.
Just about possible.
That's a shame, because that's actually a nice little continuity thing.
Yeah.
And it's a shame to break that. I have no intention of ever watching another James Bond, to be fair. I think there's much better films.
There's a new Bourne film coming out.
Is there? Is that
Yeah.
Bourne number 4?
Well, I think it's the actual 5th one, but one of them didn't have Matt Damon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was the Bourne Legacy, I think, with Jeremy Renner.
All right. Huh. There you go. I thought Matt Damon was in all of them. Is Matt Damon this one?
He is, yeah, and it's just called Bourne, and it's like, oh, they found Bourne again. He's been missing since whenever the Bourne Ultimatum came out.
Man, you know what it is? I just don't think I'm a fan of action films. Like, I get that I've watched the Bourne films, or at least I've watched. I would assume most of them. I can't tell you which ones I've watched, and they were fine. But I don't think I get excited with action films the same way you do. Die Hard being obvious case in point. You know.
I mean, I'm not like that big on action films in general. There has to be something else to them to to do it for me.
Like Bruce Willis.
Yeah, well, I just think Die Hard is, well, first of all, it's a Christmas film, which is great. And yeah, like, I really like Bruce Willis, and I really like Hans Gruber's character. And it being iconic, it's so iconic, and it's the first in a very kind of specific tendency of film. Which is part of why I find it so interesting.
Some say it might have birthed a virus and it propagates now throughout our culture. But that's just, some would say that. I'm not saying everyone.
Air Force One is amazing.
Anyhow, we can't go back over Die Hard, man.
And in Bourne, I think it's just a good kind of conspiracy thing, and I really like Matt Damon as an actor.
So do I. What's this with people give him an awful lot of grief?
Do they?
I think they do, yeah. You know, like the Matt Damon, like, Matt Damon mean.
Oh, well, that's from Team America.
Yeah, as in, yeah, but he seems like he's a person that people can easily make fun of.
The thing in the reason that was in Team America is because his puppet was like not left long enough in the kiln or something. Like his puppet was deformed, and they were just like, oh well, the puppet looks really funny, so we'll just use that as a joke now. We'll just kind of make him stupid.
All right, fair enough.
It was an entirely accidental thing.
I think Matt Damon is great. Good Will Hunting is amazing. It's a great film.
Yeah, it is a good film. He's
really good in The Martian. He's good in Bourne. He's good in most of what he does. I think he's a really, really good actor. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Anyhow, Jesus, lengthy digression. Shall we go back to follow-up?
Let's go back to follow-up.
No, good points though, Bill. Good points. And I'm always up for following up on stuff, even if it's months and months later. That's all good. Anyhow, let's crack on. TB Man from the Reddit asked us whether or not it's okay if people could write stories for Dagger.
Cool.
I want to put on the podcast. Yes, this is okay. If you want to write stories for Dagger, go for it. And I assume, can people write stories for Handwavia?
Well, I haven't really given a lot of information for Handwavia, and I'm definitely doing my own. I have my own idea about it, but yeah, that's information that's out there.
It could be a mythology type thing, Bill.
Yes, it could, Edgar.
So that would be awesome. Can I just if there's some good stories, we may read them out on the podcast. But in that case, can I just say we're not going to read out like essays on the podcast. That would not work out well. So best job if you want your story to make it on the podcast is keep it very short, like a nano story.
Or I'm sure we could find some way of like putting them on the Reddit or whatever. If people want to send it to us, we can put particularly good ones.
Yeah, you can specify if you're writing a story and sending it in to us. You can specify in your email what you would like to be done with it, because maybe some people wouldn't be comfortable with it being on the Reddit. So just let us know what you think. If it's small and we think it's particularly good, it has a pop at the thing. But we will read all of them anyways. Even if they are 3-4 pages long, I will totally sit down and read it. So yeah, send in stories. That would be deadly. And this connects us up nicely to an email, Bill, from an, oh my god, pronunciation, Gwynny Garasron, the elf. I believe that's the name of this person.
Gwynny Garasron, yeah.
Yeah, well, you say that as if it's common knowledge, man. That's a really hard that's a really hard name to pronounce. They sent in an email. Again, let me just call it up. Yeah, asking whether or not Handwavia and Dagger are in the same storyline, in the same universe.
Huh.
Tell us, Bill, is Handwavia in the same universe as Dagger? What do you think? Yay or nay?
I mean, I would have assumed nay, but it's a big universe.
Okay, so then if the follow-on point that this person writes is, do they have contact with one another? And if so, how? And would the two systems be friendly or enemies? I think this says a lot about our friendship, so this is going to be a good question.
Let me think about that now for a second. That's a deep and nuanced question.
While you're thinking, my opinion is that it would be weird to have them come into contact based on how how we're differently approaching our settings.
Yeah, like, they're different genres.
They're totally different genres. So it'd be really strange for someone in Dagger to hop into their Stargate and then be spit out on a sort of like epic, sprawling, like planetary fantasy setting. I'm not sure how you would play that. I'm not sure if you can. But if...
Although, one of the whole things of, like, sword and planet fiction is people, like, arriving in these things that are so different. So that would be kind of fitting.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You could do that, yeah. How would people get there, Bill? Are you a proponent of the FTL drive, the transporter, the long-distance transporter, or the Stargate?
I like the idea of the Stargate. I think to be in fitting with sort of Sword and the Planet, they should not really know how they got there. Like, they should fall asleep in a cave in a storm or something. Or they should get knocked on the head and then wake up somewhere else. Like, if you read kind of the classics of the genre, that's usually that kind of thing that happens. Oh no, hold on. The guy in Al-Murik got there by a strange device that the inventor then destroyed.
Huh.
Which is never explained. So I guess that's kind of a Stargate.
Could we tie this in with X? Could, after you die from X poisoning or X, or just dying in the battle, could your spirit or body go to your setting?
So that's like a Bangsian fantasy, like we were talking about before.
Oh, you're going to have to remind me again of what Bangsian is.
Bangsian fantasy, I think that's the phrase, is a fantasy that's set in an afterlife.
Yeah, oh my god! We could have a Bangsian planetary swords and planetary setting. That is awesome!
So
I'm so happy!
There's all these like confused cyberpunk super soldiers like waking up.
Yeah, with like shell shock and post-traumatic stress disorder. Oh man!
Oh god!
They're gonna have to bleep that out. What happened, Bill?
So I made a cup of tea like an hour ago before we started recording, and you know how I like to leave the tea bag in. Yeah,
you're crazy, but yeah.
And I just went to take a drink of it, and the tea bags burst, and I got a mouthful of tea grounds.
Oh, that's not nice.
That was not good at all. That was no bueno.
No bueno. So, for the sake of people writing stories that they do you want to set it like that? And then
feel free, yeah. Feel free.
And then me and you can create whatever we want on the site, because again, we're going for the grand mythology here. So.
This is fun.
This is great crack. When I was doing out the show notes during the week, I was kind of like, this might actually be the most enjoyable episode yet. Definitely to record. I don't know what it's like to listen to. Maybe it'll be boring as hell to listen to. I have no idea.
And as I said, I've got my own ideas about how I'm going to run with the system I created in Handwavia. But there's a way in which that's quite appropriate.
That sounds very cryptic.
No, just like, I mean, it was going to be kind of dark, and there was going to be elements of sort of science fantasy to it, obviously, and like the idea that's kind of a depressing idea in a lot of ways, and that's what fits in with some of the visions I had for Handwavia.
So it could work.
Good work, Edgar.
Well, I'm just a creative genius, to be fair.
To just a question, would they be friendly or enemies?
Yes.
That's quite interesting, because Handwavia isn't unified the way Dagger seems to be. It seems to have a sort of a maybe not politically unified, but like a culture, an overarching culture. And Handwavia doesn't. So you couldn't maybe make a straight statement on that, but I would imagine Dagger to view Handwavia as either a curiosity or a potential threat.
Well, hang on now. If we're doing the Bangsian thing, right, and your setting is functioning like an afterlife, is there any way in which one can be like hostile towards the afterlife?
No, that the afterlife might be hostile towards them.
That's interesting. Before you described the term reverse Bangsian fantasy.
Yeah,
now,
I actually have Wikipedia open here now.
Yeah, explain to me this, because in my head, I can't remember what you said it was, but in my head, does that mean that the afterlife goes back to the real life?
So, here it is. It's the Novarian series by L. Sprague de Camp. And
that's a brilliant name.
It is great. He's written loads of stuff. And the premise is that the afterlife of this world is our world.
The
So
afterlife.
when people die in the Novarian series, they go to Earth.
Okay. So in order for your setting to be reverse Banksian, someone in your setting would have to die and go to Dagger. Yes.
Are we not doing it? Yeah, exactly.
We are doing it the other way, but I was wondering what the connection is going back the other way. Do you know what I mean? We're doing.
Yeah. So it's just flip it around.
Are you? We've obviously established that when the ex-soldiers die, they go to Handwavia.
Right.
What's happening with your dudes? Are we having them come back to Dagger, or is this a one-way traffic sort of thing?
I don't know.
This is great crack, man.
I don't know.
Again, I feel like one way works neater, but I also feel like we're totally abusing your setting. We're just like, no, we just need you to just be there and we'll interact and you just do your thing, right? Don't be getting any creative ideas, Handwavia. Nothing's happening with you.
But maybe it's not everyone though. Maybe it's like, if it's just the ex-soldiers.
Yeah. I'm sure there will be ways to intertwine them more. And do you know what's a great way of...
Well, that's an exercise for the authors.
I was just about to say, a great way of doing this is to write some good stories. So yes, send us in stories. Handwavy and Dagger are now officially connected. You, dear listener, get to decide how, if you wish to write a story in that vein. Yeah? This is awesome. All right. Now, another point from this email from, here we go again, Gwinigarasron, the elf, is that he... man, don't do that to me. Is this? Are you legitimately saying that this is a common name, or are you just trolling me? You're so mean. Anyhow, so he writes and says his name is in Elvish. I guessed as much because it was followed by the elf, but he says his real name is Irish, and he wants us to see, can we guess his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, so can I actually from the email. But there's nothing in... Is there something in Gwinigarasron that is derived from an Irish name? I can't see it.
Some of the letters are there, but
yeah, I'm not seeing it. I think Gwinigarasron is was left us a bit of a trick question there. Anyhow, apologies for people who have no interest in the pronunciation of Irish names. Right, so what have we got? All right, now we have an email for Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And this email comes from a Shelley Garcia. I'm going to go with that. Let's go Shelley Garcia. And she wants to know, Bill, if you ever heard of the band Melakesh.
I certainly have.
You certainly have. Good band, bad band?
I don't know them super well, but I know that they're good live.
Have you seen them live?
Yeah.
Oh, where did you see them?
Oh, what was the place? I can't remember the name of the event. Is it the Village?
In Dublin?
In Dublin, yeah. It's on Camden Street.
Yeah, I believe or it's not Whelan's. No,
it's by Whelan's. I think it might be part of the same group, but okay. It's not actually. It wasn't in Whelan's itself.
For people who don't live in Ireland, this is essentially like a music venue that is located in the heart of Dublin City, in the sort of, like, would you call it the clubbing district? There's an awful lot of clubs around Camden Street.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's just to give you the context there. It's a music venue in a pretty happening sort of spot.
So yeah, like I saw them. Just over 5 years ago. It was over February 2000. The shirt I'm currently wearing, I got at that gig. I just realised.
Are you wearing you're not wearing a Melakesh shirt, are you?
No, I'm wearing a Nile shirt.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be deadly.
Yeah, I didn't buy a Melakesh. I didn't buy any Melakesh merch because I didn't know them as well. I don't know them particularly well. But they were the second, they were like the co-headliners, with Nile being the main headliners.
Whoa, sorry, let me interject here, hold on. Do you only buy merchandise if you know the band really well?
Well, if I like them, like if I don't know a band and I go to a show and they really impress me, I'll buy a T-shirt afterwards.
Oh, so are we saying that Melakesh didn't really impress the younger version of Bill?
Well, I mean, I was already a pretty solid Nile fan, and I had a limited budget, so.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And that younger version of Bill would have obviously been still in college, Bill.
Yes.
Yeah. So then obviously Cash is strapped at that sort of stage. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, do you want to hear a story? A metal clothing related story?
No.
You just.
Yeah, go on.
Remember the Nile jumper you got me?
Oh yeah.
You bought me a Nile hoodie, yeah. It has now gone to the Bangsian afterlife, Bill.
Oh no.
Yeah, it shrank something serious in the wash.
Oh dear, like too small to give to anyone else.
Yeah, no one here wants it because no one here really likes metal that much. And yeah, and I'm not going to go into my town and stand on the side of the street and be like, "Hey, free Nile hoodie."
It's a free jumper, like.
And there's no secondhand clothing shops or charity shops where I live. So yeah, it has been retired. It'll probably end up being some sort of cleaning device now.
It's a shame.
That is a shame. It was a nice hoodie. Anyway, out of 12 for Melakesh.
X.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Very good. Oh, it's a good rating if you understand your base 12 system, which, to be fair, every listener of this podcast must by now.
No, not deck.
Well, you need to specify these things.
Well, if I was specifying deck, I would have said deck.
To be fair, most people, I think, just say X. They go XE12. I get that it should be deck Eldo, but, we're in a base 10 way of living, and it's hard to fully, move over to base 12. Anyhow,
X like algebraic X.
A non-specified variable.
Yeah, because I haven't listened to them in a while.
Oh, you're very, very politically correct there, Bill. Very diplomatic. I have a follow-up question based on that email.
Yeah?
To put to you and the listeners. I have been listening to almost no music recently, which is a bit terrible.
Okay.
And I would like you / the people on the subreddit to leave me some music suggestions, things to listen to, and I will report back on the podcast with my opinions.
Okay.
So have you got anything that springs into mind as good stuff to listen to? Bear in mind, the longer the better, because usually I will listen when animating. So don't be like this one song from this one band that lasts 20 minutes. I'm looking for album suggestions.
The last album I got quite into in the last maybe week or so, you probably won't like. No.
Go for it. I want to experience loads of new things.
Through the Barricades by Spandau Ballet.
Spandau Ballet, really?
Yeah. It's a really good album, but I do actually listen to it like an album, because I listened to the last song on it, which is called Through the Barricades. It's one of their big hits by itself about a year ago, and I was like, oh, that's I don't know why that's one of their hits. It's terrible. I like their other stuff way better. And then I listened to the whole album there recently, and it was really good.
Bill, your eclectic nature will never cease to amuse me.
Spandau Ballet are really good.
Yeah, but it's like, oh yeah, Melakesh, man, and then Spandau Ballet. It's like the swings are extreme.
What's long? Do you like Richard Strauss?
No, hang on, no. What you call it? Spandau Ballet's cool.
I'm adding on that. Through the Barricades, really solid album.
Okay. Let me take this down. I'm gonna take it down in the dock here. Okay, so I don't know how to spell Spandau, but then you go Spandau Ballet, Through the Barricades. Awesome sauce. Now, what else?
Do you like Richard Strauss?
I like anything. I'm open to all suggestions.
Listen to Strauss's tone poems. My personal favourite is Heldenleben.
Helden. Was heißt Helden? Sorry, we can't.
Hero?
We can't speak German. What does Helden mean?
Hero.
Hero.
So it's a hero's life.
A hero's life. Okay, so Richard Strauss's tone poems. Okay, cool.
And then, obviously, the thing from 2001 from Also sprach Zarathustra.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is also a really good.
Well, hang on, man, but she's like, I need to report back on these. You can't be like, well, let me go through my entire library.
Oh no, Edgar.
Okay, so for now, I'm going to have a listen to Spandau Ballet Through the Barricades and Richard Strauss's Tone Poems. And if any of the listeners want to listen along and perhaps engage in a bit of discussion in the next episode, you're free to do so. I'm not stopping you.
One more thing that I've been listening to recently.
Oh, I can't stop you. We started talking music and we're off on a roll. Let's go.
So, there's an artist I like called Cutty Ranks.
Cutty Ranks.
Yeah, and he's got an album called Lethal Weapon.
Oh, Jesus, there's another atrocious series of movies.
I like the first Lethal Weapon particularly because at the end Mel Gibson beats the bad guy with like a really well executed BJJ move. He gets him in like a perfect like triangle choke.
Well, hang on, BJJ?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. I'm more likely to watch a Lethal Weapon than I am to watch Die Hard.
They're more lighthearted. Like
they're more silly.
Yeah.
But they're not good. I need to apologize to listeners because I feel like everything I say on this podcast is negative. Like it's like, oh, I watched Enterprise, it's terrible. I watched Voyager, it's terrible. Everything seems to be terrible.
Voyager is pretty terrible.
Yeah, no, but Enterprise is an awful lot more terrible, to be fair. Terribler. Right, so listeners, to summarise these again. Spandau Ballet, Through the Barricades, Richard Strauss's Tone Poems, and Cutty Ranks' Lethal Weapon. Have a listen along if you want. I will leave some follow-up, all of which will probably be negative, in the next show.
You can't dislike Strauss.
No. I go into everything with an open mind, and if I don't like a thing, I'll just say I don't like a thing, and if I do like a thing, I will give it a ton of praise. We will see this in the green room later on if we ever get there.
Yeah, I've actually been finding it hard to find new music recently. Yeah,
I think I'm suffering from a similar thing.
I just got get into a rush and kind of don't know where to look to find new things. I did solicit suggestions for Summer Jams playlist on Facebook the other day, so I've got a couple of new things to work through there.
My problem is that I'm so out of the loop when it comes to popular music.
Yeah.
And in popular music, I'm including everything that is not classical music.
Yeah.
I put on, was it Scuzz or something the last day? I think it was Scuzz. And I was like, I know no one. I know none of these people. Like, none of these bands. Actually, no, that's a lie. Bullet for My Valentine came on. I was like, I remember them. They back when I was like heavy into rock music, they were like the new band. And now they seem to be like these, like, they've been around since forever. So I'm just completely out of the loop. And this is part of the reason why I was going to ask you. And it's really good that Shelley Garcia sent in that email because it just got that conversation going, you know?
Well, I'm sorry that I haven't given you anything more contemporary in my suggestions.
No, that's absolutely fine. I don't mind. It doesn't have to be contemporary, just pop. Or not, it could be anything, but I just need a starting point. Anyhow, have we got anything left with follow-up? I'm out. Are you out?
I can't think of anything. I think we're done.
I think we've reached... Wow, we're not done. We've reached the end of the follow-up.
1 hour later.
So, Bill, I hear you've been doing some political world building.
I have been doing some political world building, correct.
But before we get into that, I want to talk about some general politics, real life politics, if that's okay. Because this never incites a flame war or anything, you know. Do we have a government?
I don't know, actually. We have a parliament. We certainly have, like, TDs.
Alright, we have ministers.
No, we don't have any ministers.
We don't have any ministers. Okay.
Well, we've got kind of, like, caretaker ministers, maybe, from the previous government.
Alright, but we don't have a new government.
For the listeners, what happened was there was a general election in Ireland 7 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So, yeah, like a while ago. It was like February the 20th or something. So it was a good while ago. And it was a very inconclusive election. No party had a majority. and there's no clear political party alliances happening. So right now, we don't really have a government.
Which is just hilarious.
Which, I mean, we're doing okay. Like, nothing's caught fire or anything yet. We're, like, the government, like, the country hasn't collapsed in the absence of a government.
There aren't riots in the street.
There aren't riots in the street, no. The TDs are still getting paid.
TDs, now hold on, let's explain TDs.
Let's break this down, sorry, yes. So, our parliament is called the Oireachtas. Mm-hmm. And there's two houses. There's the Dáil, which is like the lower house, and the Seanad, which is the Senate.
Yes.
And members of the Senate are called senators.
Hey!
Surprisingly. And members of the Dáil, the lower house, are called TD, which is Teachta Dála. It pretty much, it means MP.
Yeah.
Like in any other parliamentary system. They're the members of parliament, the Teachta Dála. And what happened was we had a general election to elect the Dáil, and because they're the kind of the more important of the two houses, and it was incredibly inconclusive. So we don't really have a Taoiseach or anything at the moment, which is the name of the Prime Minister. We just have the previous Taoiseach, sort of holding the position in a caretaker status, but is not really as an actual Taoiseach. But yeah, the TDs are all still getting paid.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
For a job that isn't being done. Now, someone did point out to me on Facebook that they're paid well to prevent corruption. So if they weren't getting paid at the moment, then they'd be open to corruption, which is a good point. But it still feels kind of a little bit unfair somehow.
Yeah, this whole election was a disaster. You say that there's no clear party alliance. I disagree.
Really?
Yeah, so for the listeners again, what happened, without talking specific parties, what happens is the two big main parties are kind of, they best be described as being centre-right.
Yeah.
And they are, even though they ostensibly declare themselves to be very different from one another, they're essentially the same party. There's
historical differences, but in terms of policy at the moment, they're very, very similar.
Exactly. So their differences lie in the past, in what we call it Civil War politics. I believe that's where the differences come from, yeah?
That's where they come from,
yeah. But yeah, like you say, policy-wise, it's pretty much the same. They're not that different. So if there wasn't this historic burden on them, the easy thing to do would be the two main parties, because if they combined into a coalition, they would have incredible power. They would form like a supermajority nearly. But they just are refusing to do so because of these historical natures, even though like I don't particularly agree with their policies, but from looking at the data that was gathered from the election, looking how the votes were distributed, the clear and obvious solution is for those two big main parties to just form a coalition. And I think in any other country, they just form the coalition. But here it's like this kind of a weird thing, because we're like a young nation and a lot of these things are still very fresh in people's minds. And it's a very interesting, strange situation. And I have, this is why I brought it up with you, because I have no clue as to what's going on. I'm like, I don't really follow the news, so I'm kind of like, do we have a government? I don't know. And is it close to being resolved? Do you know?
I have no idea. I mean, I reckon they're probably just going to call another election.
That's going to be a right disaster altogether.
Yeah.
That's going to be terrible. But hey, there you go. Anyway, so I realise listeners who don't live in Ireland are probably like, who cares? But I had no idea, and I just wanted to bring it up with Bill. And use it as a little segue into Bill's own political world building. So what do you got for us?
Okay, I'm going to describe this. I'm going to describe it from the bottom up. And I'm going to avoid using real world terms as much as possible. And I want to hear your reaction to it at the end.
Okay, go for it.
I think how you would describe it. So I'm going to actually describe its workings, and I'm going to ask you kind of to describe its name, or what you think would be a name for something like this.
Okay, but bear in mind, political stuff is not my forte, but I'll give it my best shot.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. All right, go for it.
So I've got pages and pages of notes here. So I'm going to start off by saying that this region has a strong cultural emphasis on the rights of the individual and the right of the individual to have a say in their governance.
Right, okay, yeah.
And how it works is a citizen, let's just use that word, I mean, that's a word with kind of a lot of connotations or whatever, but let's just say citizen, it lives in either a city or in an outlying area near to a city, and they will have a say in their local government. So I've come up with the city, let's call it Mahersh.
Okay.
Which is a city with 5 districts within the city itself, and then 11 regions around it. So, like, let's maybe say counties or parishes around the city, which it administers. And the people from the different districts of the city or the regions around the parishes decide among themselves who their representative is, and then their representatives take part in the city government.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the next level above that is the city government chooses a representative to send to the overall governing body of the country, which is called the Sovereign Court.
Right.
And the Sovereign Court has 14 members from the various cities and the places administered by the cities. And the Sovereign Court chooses one member to function as the chief sovereign, which is effectively a kind of a monarch. It's a lifetime position.
Okay.
And that is the size of it, really. I mean, that's the bare bones version, and you can ask me further questions about this or how anything specific works.
You wanted me to try and describe this in real terms now.
Okay, well, you can ask more questions first if you want.
Okay.
I suppose an important thing to point out is that the regions outside the cities themselves can choose who to be governed by. So if a region on the outskirts of Mahersh's territory decides that Mahersh is collecting too much taxes, or that they're not being fairly represented, then they can vote to join a different city, and that is a normal part of the political landscape. So they don't have fixed borders in the same way that we are used to thinking of. It's not like, oh, well, this parish belongs to this city. It's that this parish is contracted, or this parish is a client of this city. And that can change as economic or political circumstances change.
Okay, so let me try and summarize what you just said to see have I got everything straight, and then I'll give a pop at what this is.
Okay.
So, you have various cities, and they are surrounded by various parishes, counties, whatever.
Yeah, outlying regions of some sort.
Non-city outlying regions.
Yeah.
And so the outlying regions will vote to get a representative, their representative.
Mm-hmm.
The representative goes to the city.
Mm-hmm.
And then within the city, there's like another election type thing. And then one representative from that city election type thing, where all the local ones have been drawn in, is sent to the national level.
Yeah.
And then out of that, they elect from that pool of representatives, they elect the quote-unquote monarch.
Yeah, the chief sovereign.
Okay, so is this like a... This is weird. A representative monarchy? Is this what this is? A representative monarchy?
Yeah, there's some of those words fit.
A monarchy that is not hereditary and not done by divine right, but a democratically elected monarchy system.
Yes, I'll point out that historically, monarchies weren't always considered to be by divine right.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
Yeah, the Holy Roman Emperor was an elected position.
Oh, okay.
Now, there were often limitations on it, like you could only be elected from the nobility, or for a long time in the Holy Roman Empire, they only elected Habsburgs.
Well, what's a Habsburgs?
It was like a dynasty. It was like a big imperial and royal family. I think they're all gone now, actually. I don't know if there's any left.
Okay.
So, and sometimes that was legally encoded that you could only vote for someone from a dynasty to be the thing, but elective monarchies is a thing. The Prince of Hanover was called the Elector of Hanover for a lot of history because they had the right to elect. Now, it wasn't elected by everyone, but it was like that the people who were eligible to be in the parliament could elect the king or whatever.
Okay, so
monarchy isn't as uniformly kind of autocratic and inherited as we often think it is.
Okay, so... Alright, so that idea is not a democratically elected monarch is not the kind of key point to this. I'm assuming that.
I wouldn't say that those places were democratic necessarily.
But in your setting, they're not democratic necessarily.
No, in my setting, it's something like democracy.
Okay, so will you explain to me in real terms what's going on?
Well, I mean, there isn't. I don't have any word for this because it isn't a thing that exists anywhere. I've built in something kind of new.
Okay, all right, okay. I thought you were trying to get me to find what it is in real terms, and I was struggling because I was like,
no, I mean, I was trying to think what you would come up with because there are certain keywords that I started out with and kind of ideas I had.
Why is there? Can I probe your system?
Yeah.
Why is there so much emphasis placed on the outlying regions? It seems like they have the potential to affect an awful lot of power. And if they're outlying regions, by definition, they are not cities, so therefore less people will live there.
Yeah.
So it seems like you're giving an awful lot of power to regions that don't have an awful lot of people in them.
Well, the idea behind that is because there's a strong cultural emphasis on
the individual.
On the individual, right. And they, like, a single outlying region can't force a city to behave a certain way. But the power they wield is the power of their own allegiance and their taxes and their people to join the military or whatever. So it's that's how they balance against the cities and the higher levels being too draconian or taking too much taxes, that they can say, well, we no longer consent to this and we will join a city that gives us a better deal.
Is there so let's say we have two cities.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in a non-city outlying region that's located equidistant between both of them.
Yeah.
I can just choose which city to go to, yeah? Which city to align myself with via voting processes.
Yeah, that county can decide it wants to be part of Road instead of Mahersh.
Right, so that makes sense when you are neighbouring them, but so can my region vote to become part of a city that they really like the tax policy of, except that they're located 400 kilometres away?
I mean, you could try, but no one is realistically going to vote for that because they're not going to be able to provide for you.
Right, okay.
In realistic terms.
Okay, so it's kind of almost like a free market sort of thing. The system balance itself.
Yeah, and I have thought about, I have tried to make this somewhat balanced, is that one level of the system can't wield all the power. So, essentially how it works is there's an obligation and a receipt at each level.
Okay.
So, an individual person, a citizen, will have to pay taxes to their region and thence to the city that it's a part of, but they get representation in the world, in the political system in return.
Yes, yeah.
A region will have to, again, pay taxes up to the city and to the sovereign court, but then they receive representation in the court, they receive military protection.
Right, yeah.
And the regions, they self-organise to protect the citizens and to see what is the fairest and what is the best deal. And they have, so then the cities, as I said, they don't have this idea of fixed borders. They view it in terms of projecting influence and projecting force over the areas that are cliented to them.
Right, yeah.
They raise taxes and they raise a military force, which is the taxes are paid on to the court, to the national level, and the military force is nominally under the control of the court. Then the court itself is made up of people from the different region or the different cities.
Yeah.
So they've all got their own competing things, and it would be difficult to form a cabal to take over because they can be unelected.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me interject there. While we're on the sovereign court is what you called it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. While we're on the sovereign court, you said that amongst themselves they elect the monarch.
Yes.
And it's a lifetime position.
Yes. Well, it can be unelected.
I was about to say, because it looks like you're going for a very fair system here, and then I was kind of like, what happens if you elect someone who's crap? And then you're stuck with them for 50 years?
Yeah.
But also, so they can be unelected, that's great. But what happened? But the process, I don't understand how a load of representatives from a load of different cities can amongst themselves elect one person to rule over them, because by definition they would have to come from one of the cities as well. So in that sense, are they not prioritizing a certain place?
They're not necessarily prioritizing a certain place, they're prioritizing a certain individual.
Yeah, but that individual, will he or she not have allegiances to the region and the city he came from?
Yes, but in order to keep that position, because they can be unelected, in order to keep that position, he'll have to be balanced and be fair. And if he's like, okay, I as the chief, or if that person is, if they say I as the chief sovereign will raise taxes everywhere except my home city, then there'd be uproar. And also the court wouldn't pass that. The court wouldn't allow that to take place. They would say, no, we're not gonna vote that rule.
So how much power does the head have, the monarch?
So there are 14 members of the court.
There are.
They each have one vote, apart from the chief sovereign, who has 1.5 votes.
Okay.
So they have a tiebreaker vote, essentially.
Yeah.
They're in no way like an autocrat. It's more like a chief military leader and a chief diplomat.
Okay. So do they
Which is what kings historically were in the earlier Middle Age. They didn't move towards sort of autocracy until relatively recent history, at least in well, maybe that's a bit of a blanket statement to say. Some kings were
Edgar loves his blanket statements.
Yeah. For originally kings in a lot of places were primarily in Western Europe anyway, were primarily the chief military leader.
Right. Okay. So they don't really affect the running of laws like this. So is their position to sign in bills, to organize the military, and be a diplomat, sort of thing?
Largely, yeah, and to have the casting vote in close situations.
And is why did you go for 14?
I didn't pick it as a specific reason. I was trying to view this as an organic system that kind of grew up. I wasn't trying to deliberately craft something perfect. So this 14 seemed like an all right kind of believable number of cities to have in a country.
All right, but why not just go for an odd number and avoid the necessity to have a 1.5 vote on behalf of the monarch? Is that just again organic, like the real world?
No, I didn't choose it on that basis. I picked a number and then I thought what the ramifications would be.
Okay. Yeah. See, you and I are very different, man. The first thing I would be thinking is numerology and being like, what is the significance of this number? And what can it mean? What do we associate with the number 14?
Yeah.
Whereas
that's not how Italy came to be. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've a habit, we've seen this before with the galaxy. I have a habit of thinking in numbers. Remember my whole trefoil not 3 thing?
Oh yeah.
I have a real habit of imbuing too much symbolism perhaps in numbers. Which can really hinder my world building, so there's things I don't know, if I build planets or something, I've been known to try and hide mathematical clues in the numbers.
Yeah.
So have the Harvey Ramanujan number stuck in there somewhere. Nature doesn't orientate itself like that, but I kind of like the symbolism. But it's good. I like the system. What sort of time period is this set in? Is this a Middle Age analog? Is this?
I was viewing it as kind of broadly Middle Age Renaissance kind of thing, but I don't think it's necessarily tied to that. Yeah,
no, totally. I just wanted to know.
That was kind of where my head was at. The thing I kind of thought of to lead me to it. Now it doesn't satisfy all of this, but what I was thinking of was representative feudalism, because feudalism was all about control of the land and stuff, I guess.
Oh, what am I doing with my representative monarchy? Yeah, obviously it's feudal. It's you have feudal. You have the lords over the regional areas, and then you have those lords are subservient to the next. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's stupid. I'm sorry.
Obligations go in both directions. That the ones above have the obligation to protect and represent, and the ones below have the obligation to pay the taxes and provide military and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was the idea of kind of what something vaguely with some things in common with feudalism would look like if there was an emphasis on a cultural emphasis on democracy or cultural emphasis on the rights of the individual to choose their governance.
Yeah, that's cool. I really like that. Can I ask? Sorry, and stop me if you're like sick of the probing, but I'm really interested in this.
No, please, ask away.
Have you come up with a system of voting?
Like down to the base level.
Well, as far down as you've gone. Have you just said they vote, or have you said how they would vote?
I've worked out a little bit of one of the cities, but my idea is that they would be different from area to area.
Yeah.
Because I think that's quite interesting, and it's historically not that crazy. I mean, like if you look at Europe, like places could be like right beside each other and have very different legal systems, and
Yeah.
like England and Scotland have quite different legal systems.
Yeah, definitely. And even if there is no historical precedent, it's not like completely strange, and it's really interesting anyways. Yeah. So tell us about this one thing that you have.
Okay, so it was the city I started out describing, Mahersh.
Yep.
Sorry, wait till I find my...
We're gonna rustle through the papers like a... Oh, let me do... I want to join in union with you here. Hold on.
Well, I'm finished now.
Just rustle some papers.
So yeah, this is a city of 5 districts.
Okay.
So within the city itself, say within like the city walls, the urban area, whatever, there's 5 districts. And it currently has 11 client regions, so 11 outlying parishes or counties or whatever. Mm-hmm. The city government is made up of 2 circles. The Great Circle, which consists of 16 members, 1 from each of its 5 districts and its 11 client regions.
Right, yes.
And then the High Circle, which is like the city mayor. Okay. Then it's representation, or it's representative on the Sovereign Court.
Yep.
Representatives from the 5 city districts, and then professional or religious representatives, like professional or like heads of guilds or chief priests or whatever. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the people of the city get slightly more representation because they're both on the Great Circle and the High Circle, but the Great Circle must be larger than the High Circle by at least 2 members.
Okay.
And between them, they decide on who the representative for the court is. And because the representative at court will be away a lot of the time, they appoint a proxy. That person appoints a proxy to represent them on the High Circle.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh,
well, can appoint a proxy to represent them on the High Circle.
Yeah, but that's an interesting idea. So is that the extent at which you've come up with the system? You haven't come up with the nuts and bolts of the actual voting?
No, because it's going to differ from area to area. So one city might say that all of its outlying areas have to have like a ballot, like a somewhat modern ballot box. Other ones might have like a thing where everyone turns up and there's a discussion and like a consensus is reached. And I think that's more interesting to have it disunified. And also, that would make it harder to rig things because you'd have to know all of the different systems and you'd have to figure out how to fraud everything.
Oh, would there be potential for people who make their livings that way, who are employed to try and understand as much of it as possible in order to report back and see can they sway the system?
Yes, it would be this would be a brilliant setting to be like a lawyer or a jurist or something in.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like there's a lot of legal entanglement that can go on, and trying to unravel that might be cool. Yeah. What are the problems with your system?
I have a page on that.
Paper time. Peanut butter paper time.
Where is it? I thought I had it here. I had it. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it's disunified.
Right.
In that the fact that there isn't a strong centralized government means that it may be difficult to present a unified response to external threats or a unified face.
Okay.
And it can be it was maybe bureaucratically unwieldy in some respects. Like if you want to make a major reform for the entire nation, then definitely. it would take a long time to effect that. And while I said that the fact that things are uneven protects against large-scale fraud, it doesn't protect against small-scale fraud, and some places may be more open to corruption of the democratic process than others, which is a potential problem.
And that's really interesting, because again, problems make interest.
Yeah, totally. And also, the court, this is also one of my starting points for this, is... Are you familiar with the idea that the function of the state is to act, is to hold a monopoly on violence? Are you familiar with that concept?
Oh, no, I've never heard that before, but it makes sense.
Yeah, is that violence is a thing that you don't want, but it's unavoidable, and it's better to have it, like, centralized in the state, so that, you know, you have police can use force to prevent violence, and then the military can use force to prevent external violence.
Yes.
Yeah. Not a perfect concept by any means, but an interesting one. So I was thinking about that, and that's quite historically a new one. That, you know, in the English-speaking world, until Cromwell, maybe even a little bit later, military wasn't owned or controlled by the nation, the government as such. It was owned by noblemen.
Yeah.
And so this is what's happening here, is that the military forces aren't directly controlled by the court. They belong to the city. So there's the possibility of intercity warfare.
Wait, hang on. Did you not say that the monarch was the general, like?
He's the chief leader.
Oh, right, okay.
As in, he's like the figurehead, the chief strategist. If there's a conflict,
like an external
he will
conflict.
be the one who comes up with it.
Okay.
Well, who comes up with the strategy or whatever, and the tactics, but they aren't his.
Right, so there still can be infighting amongst the ranks, so to speak.
Yeah, and it does happen, and it's an understood part of the political landscape. When a military force is required, the court will appropriate them or second them from the city.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, like they are fundamentally not owned by the court. They are owned by the city that raises them.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. Again, because flaws make things more interesting. And it's nice to have it not be a perfect system where it's a utopia and everyone's really happy.
Yeah.
It's good to have that. I like that. The idea of intercity warfare is actually really cool. And then I assume then obviously the sovereign court will be on high alert then to try and democratically sort it out on behalf of the people underneath them who are causing problems.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
I've written down 5 features or thoughts here underneath problems, which I might just read out.
Yeah, go for it.
Now, I've covered most of these, but just to have them in bullet point form. It's kind of like an inverted feudalism, or a bottom-up feudalism.
Yeah.
There's a strong cultural emphasis on democratic representation. Rule is legitimized by the will of the population. The sovereign court, or the overall power structure, does not hold a monopoly on violence.
Yeah, like you pointed out there.
And the concept of borders is fluid. It's not like the kind of rigid idea that we hold, that a country ends here and begins elsewhere, but it's more about a projection of influence and power.
Yeah, the latter point I really like.
Yeah?
I think that's a really good part of your system. I really, really like that. I disagree slightly with your assertion that it's not the way we think. Like, technically we have fluid borders, not on the national level, but certainly on the local level when you take into account gerrymandering and the ability to be able to shift electoral borders and all that. So it's not exactly what you're saying, obviously, but we do. It's not like this is a concept completely alien to people living in, Ireland, UK, America, or wherever else gerrymandering happens.
Sure, but I mean, it's not like it's easy to secede from one country to another.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and like in Ireland, less so in the UK, but in Ireland, counties are pretty rigidly defined, and it's rare that somewhere will stop being part of one county, or like a county never becomes part of another province.
Oh yeah, maybe my thinking of it as being electoral regions is wrong. I should think of it more as in like Irish counties.
Yeah, it's more. It is electoral region in one sense, and the constituencies shift, but it's probably something a little bit more old-fashioned to our mind, that it's the cultural associations with your kind of electoral constituency are stronger than they would be for us.
Yeah, Cool. I like it.
It's an idea with some historical precedent as well, because the Romans didn't think in terms of borders, apparently. It was just like, we have places that we can project our power over.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. But again, even without the historical stuff, you don't, like, it's nice to have it, but you don't really need it to, like, to say that this is valid, you know?
I think it works as a sort of a proof of concept. It's like, this isn't totally out there.
Yeah, like, it's happened before in the real world and it worked. So it should be able to work on paper in a fictional setting.
Would you like to hear about the election of the chief sovereign?
I would, but can I ask you a quick question before you go into that? Yeah. How do the people feel about this? How do the lay people feel about this? Do they like the system? Do they feel it's unfair? What's their thoughts?
That's a bit of a broad question. I mean,
I will. Okay, but put it
like, there's going to be a range of
there is, but overall,
opinions.
do they have a positive view towards their government? They think it does a good job for them, and the system is a good system, or
I would expect it's generally seen as a good system.
Okay,
and I think the real test for that would be stability. That if the thing manages to be stable and doesn't result in famines or like mass warfare every, if it doesn't do it too often, it's probably okay.
Okay, fair point. And another thing that springs to mind about the individual, how engaged are they in the political process? Is there a huge amount of apathy, or are they really up for this, like, we have a right as the individual to choose?
I would expect that it would largely be quite active.
Okay.
Because it's done primarily on a local level.
Okay, but no, hold on. But our politics is done primarily on a local level, and the apathy here is huge.
No, it's not. We elect, like,
local representatives to go to government for us.
Yeah, to go away for us. Whereas to the national level, where here it's like you choose your local thing primarily. It's like, it would be more like people voting for their councillors here than voting for their TDs. Right,
which is still a local representation sort of thing.
But it's more, you're choosing your local government. Whereas in real life here, we're choosing our national government.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
And I suppose if people feel like they're more, their vote has more power because they can see it more. Because sometimes it's hard to see the influence your vote has on a national level.
Yeah.
But if your vote is kind of more close to home, and that would lower apathy then. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other side of that is because there isn't a hugely powerful centralized government, is that voting on the local issues is a bit more relevant.
Yes, that's true.
Because you're voting for someone to represent your village or your city district in the city government.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this happening in Handwavia?
It doesn't really fit in with anywhere I've thought of in Handwavia. I hadn't considered this specific city to be in Handwavia, no, but
okay.
There's no reason you couldn't transplant this idea. I mean, like, there's like kings and everything, so I don't see why you couldn't have this in more than one setting.
I was going to say that if anyone wants to use our ideas for story fodder, they could easily transplant it onto one of my outlying planets, but I don't want to steal your idea. So, but yeah, I just wanted to check. So
I've put it out there. I mean, if people want to use it, then go ahead.
Man, I seriously hope people write stories. This is gonna be some crack if they do. I really do. But anyway, you were going to ask about the election, or you were going to tell me about the election.
Yes. So the chief sovereign, which is the monarchical position, is elected from the 14 representatives at the sovereign court.
Yes.
Now, the election excludes when an election is called, it excludes the vote from the city of the current or the most recent sovereign. So there are 13 people voting rather than 14.
Grand, yeah.
And a majority of 8 votes is required. So they need to have significant...
They need a supermajority.
What's exactly is a supermajority?
I think it's something like 66%, but in context, this is more akin to a supermajority than your regular majority.
Yeah,
are you Googling?
You can't just have I am Googling it.
You can't just have +1, half +1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A supermajority is, it doesn't have, it's a specified amount. So, yeah, it can be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it requires 8 out of the 13 votes from the eligible voters.
So hang on, sorry, who are we electing? We're electing the monarch.
The chief sovereign, the monarch.
Oh, so it takes a significant amount to change it.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
The position is a lifetime position. Or until retirement, because you can choose to give it up.
Or assassination.
Or impeachment, or death, yeah. Well, I mean, lifetime would include assassination.
Oh, it would, yes. I'm sorry.
No, I had something here with death of the chief sovereign. I'll get to that in a minute.
Man, you really did a lot of homework for this episode. Good God.
Now, the chief sovereign can name a successor.
Okay.
So you can choose an heir. And that requires active opposition to block. So unless there is a specific opposition to it,
ooh,
the heir will assume the position.
Is the heir being hereditary, or can they
Not
just
necessarily.
they can just choose anyone?
Yes.
Oh, but
which makes it a political move. So you can say, so if you just like choose your own family and it's someone who's incompetent, then that's going to be opposed. But if you want to, curry favour with another political bloc, you can say, well, I will name this scion of your banking house or whatever as my heir.
Awesome. I like that. I actually like it more than the fact that it could happen that it becomes hereditary for a period. That's what I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting, because you set it up, like at the start, you specifically said it's not a hereditary office, but the sort of the nuances can make it, little loopholes can make it happen to become hereditary. I think that's cool.
To be functionally hereditary, or that you could pass it on to your heir.
Yeah, and then there might be a possibility that the heir is really good, and then you might get a thing where they're kind of like, well, this family has done really well, so that could tick over until someone really incompetent comes along. I think that's really cool. That leaves it open for a political shift of system. That's awesome.
Now, to oppose the naming of an heir requires 9 out of 13 votes.
Oh, a super majority.
The heir must still be eligible for membership of the sovereign court. So you have to say that, okay, I'm the chief sovereign, Bill is the chief sovereign, and I'm going to make Edgar my heir.
Right.
When the office becomes vacant through my death or impeachment or retirement, you must still become a member of the sovereign court through the normal means. So you still have to become a city representative.
So you can't have crazy King Bill picking some peasant off the streets in some random district.
More or less, yeah. I mean, he could do that. Crazy Bill could do that, but and it would probably be opposed. And if it wasn't opposed, it would fall through if that peasant didn't get elected to the court. Yeah,
it seems like that's a measure just to make everything more streamlined in a way.
Well, yeah, it's to prevent outright abuse, and because if you could say that, oh well, this person who is quite powerful within the nation, there is no balance and there's no check to who this person is, that kind of underlies, or that undercuts the democratic idea. Is there
anything that can happen where you require more than 9 votes?
Yes, impeachment.
Oh, okay, go tell us about this.
So if a chief sovereign is considered to be no longer fit for office for whatever reason, it requires 10 out of 13 votes to impeach. Because obviously they can't vote on themselves, so that's why it's 13 still.
Yeah.
My kind of logic behind this is you need a comfortable majority to maintain leadership.
Yes.
So you need 8 out of 13, which is a pretty comfortable majority to maintain leadership. 9 out of 13 is a greater majority again to consolidate power. So it's to prevent people easily building large power blocks.
Yeah.
But then it's larger again to upset the status quo because you want stability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And also, you can't have someone... Yeah, if 7 out of the 13 people just decided that they didn't like the thing, you can't have that level of change. And it could happen so often as well. Oh, yeah, that's no good. I agree with the 10. 10's good. I agree with it.
Now, if the death of a chief sovereign the approved heir or an approved heir. So if it hasn't been overturned and they're eligible to take a seat in the sovereign court, they assume office immediately.
Oh, right, okay.
In the absence of an approved heir, the city that the chief sovereign came from appoints a replacement representative, and then an election takes place as normal. So if Crazy King Bill hasn't named anyone, and then he dies, then the city I came from, puts out a new representative, and then a normal election takes place within the sovereign court.
The same thing goes if he has an heir as well, isn't it? So if Crazy King Bill has a normal heir, do they fulfill a caretaker role until they are validated by a vote? Or does it just take over and, like, if they're an heir, they just keep office?
Well, it's not the same thing, because in the absence of an heir, there is an election. If an heir has been named, there's no election.
There's no election.
Within the court. The court does not hold an election to decide the next thing, the next sovereign, because they could have opposed it or already.
Cool. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Cool.
And you were asking about whether the person is eligible to be a member of the sovereign court yet. I guess that's a slightly grey area. I'll need to think about the mechanics of that.
Okay.
And in the time of... What word did I write there? That is not a word.
Try and pronounce it. What word did you write?
Greaternance.
Greaternance. Good.
Oh, it's governance, and I've just made part of the V, the last arm of the V really high by accident.
Oh, crazy King Bill and his inability to spell.
And in a time of crisis, when there's it's not possible to hold an election for whatever reason, the election is suspended, and the court of 14 equal members assumes a caretaker governance.
Yeah. Cool.
Now, there's obviously as all things with emergency powers, there's a possibility of abuse there. But remember that people can be recalled.
Yeah, and it's
by their own cities.
It's an emergency situation, so
it's unlikely for people to allow it to go on for too long.
Exactly, yeah. And in terms of like a literary function, it's nice to have chaos then, because it reflects the chaos of what's going on externally, internally as well. So, yeah, cool. I like. Have you come up with any stories around this? Have you come up with any like particularly mad king or something, Crazy King Bill type stories?
I haven't.
You haven't?
Not. I mean, I've got a good few pages of notes here, as you've heard.
Wait! Paper time.
And I'm considering maybe like actually writing it up as some kind of in-universe document that explains how the government of this nation works.
If you have it up by the time this goes live, I will link to it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I probably won't, but I mean, if I have it up by another stage, you can still link to it, I guess. There's no capital city.
There is no Well, that makes sense, because you're on about kind of everything being even and nothing sticking out. Yeah, a capital city would defeat the purpose.
Or rather, there's no permanent capital.
I was about to ask, could you not have a moving capital city?
Yeah.
That moves around. That's good. I like that.
So my idea at the moment is that for ordinary business, the sovereign court convenes at a particular city, and it changes every maybe half year or so. So there's a calendar that it will travel between the 14 major cities over the space of however 7 years, let's say.
We had that this is a thing that happens in the EU, isn't it? Not with capital cities, but there's a thing, Ireland...
Oh, like the nominal capital, is just passed between the countries.
Yeah, this weird kind of like lip service type thing.
Ceremonial capital.
Yeah, ceremonial capital. That's cool. That's interesting. I like the idea of that.
And for extraordinary circumstances, the seasonal calendar is abandoned, and the court just meets at whatever the most convenient place to the crisis is. So say there's an invasion on the southern border, then they'll meet at a city in the south.
Okay.
Just for the duration of it. I was like, oh, well, there's a problem here. Better go here so we can be close to the action and be effective down here.
Would you not want the opposite? Do you want to bring all your electives to the danger zone?
Well, I'm not going to put them on the battlefield, but you also don't want them weeks of travel away.
Sorry. You're in medieval times. Yeah. Sorry. They'd have to get on their horses and go down. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was kind of like, just send an email. Cool. That's cool.
I think that's all of it.
You seriously, man? I was kind of like I didn't put half as much effort into the magic system last time. I was kind of like, oh, I have an idea. Here's a couple of details, class. But you've proper like come up with a dossier over there. I can hear it.
Yeah, I've got one of those like those like journalist pads, like the A5 spiral.
Oh,
Spiral notebooks. Let me see how many pages did I
are
write?
you wearing your fedora with the press thing stuck in the band?
3. What a scoop! 4, 5, 6. Now some of it is doubled up because I wrote it top down and then thought it was more thematically appropriate to write it from the bottom up again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-ish pages.
Wow.
Of notes.
That's cool. That's cool. You serve the podcast well, sir. I had, remember the initial plan was both of us would build a system.
Yeah.
But then Edgar got really busy with in real life stuff and I wasn't able to. I had my rough idea. I never got a chance to see if it would work or flesh it out. My rough idea was to have a proportionally representative theocratic meritocracy.
Okay.
That was my idea. And I still, in the back of my head, I'm still kind of like, I wonder could this work? Like a representative religious meritocracy. And I might actually give that a pop for next time and see if it works.
Sure.
I'm thinking in my head, probably not.
So governed by the priests, but you advance through the priesthood on merit.
No, not really. No, the way I was thinking of it was that the people who put themselves forward for election can only be priests, and they will have particular skills in certain areas. Like one will be a priest who's in contact with the goddess of health, for example.
Right.
And then when you're voting, you would vote in people for jobs. So you would have one ballot in front of you, we'll say, or I haven't figured out whether or not it's a ballot, but one thing in front of you that all the list of priests that convene with the health goddess, and you pick which one you think does the best job. And then you have all the list of priests that convene with the war goddess, and you would elect them to be like overseeing defense and things like that.
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous now that I say it out loud.
That's quite interesting. Are the church, is there a hierarchical church? And if there is a hierarchical, is there a hierarchical religious organization? And if there is it separate to the government? Are they separate organizations, like nominally?
No, so there isn't. I don't think there would be a hierarchical religious church type thing. It's more kind of like certain people are just born with the gift to talk to the gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind
of...
Or
they even if they train it or whatever, that doesn't really change the...
Yeah. But there's no kind of like... Yeah, there's no centralized church. Now, what was your second point?
And if so, is it a separate organization to the government?
All right,
that doesn't
it's the government is just formed out... Because I think the way it is that the people see that obviously you want to be ruled by people who can understand and communicate with the people who make existence.
Yeah.
So they elect them like that.
Religion doesn't exist as a social organizer as such. Religious organizations don't act as social organizers the way they often do.
Yeah, they're still social organizers in the sense that they become the politicians that set the rules for society. Yeah,
but like the worship isn't for example, in Mesopotamia, I as far as I know, the priests were like, they collected the fruits of agriculture and stuff. And that was part of the religious concept and the religious makeup of society, was that doing this, giving your grain to the city, was given to the priests, and that was part of religion. So there's nothing kind of analogous to that. They're more separate.
Yeah, well, that would happen, but there would be the context behind it would be different. Like you would give your grain in forms of tax to the agricultural priest, but there isn't the kind of like, if you do this, the gods will be happy with you. Do you know what I mean? Or there's no kind of like, there isn't this religious connotation. It just so happens that the people in power, we would from the outside look at them and call them religious.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Again, man, I haven't. I sat down and went, what do I like? I was kind of like, what do I not like? I'd like to build a system I don't like to really test my ideas. And then, regardless of religious beliefs, what religious beliefs people have, I think it might be safe to say that a theocracy is not a great idea. Because it's the same thing like autocratic sort of nature. It's like too centralized and too in-house. So I was like, oh, I'll do that. And then it slowly turned into, oh, I like this idea of theocracy. And then I was like, oh, I really like proportional representation. Let's do that. And then, oh, yeah, meritocracy. Great, perfect. There's a system. That was the extent of my thinking. So I haven't really got anything to answer a load of questions on, you know. But yeah, there you go. I might flesh it out for next time. Who knows?
I like the sound of it.
Oh, thank you. I genuinely thought it was crazy. So yeah. All right. Do you think we've reached the end of main topic?
I think we have. I mean, I don't think I have any more to say.
And well, if you do have something more to say, you can add it in follow-up next time.
That's true.
That is what follow-up is there for, sir.
Can I name an interesting website?
Nope.
Cool. All right. On to the green room.
Go for what's this website?
So, welcome to the green room, Edgar. So we can put this in the show notes.
Okay.
There's a website called The Frontistery.
Okay, I don't know this at all.
And they seem to be some kind of word geek. So I'm fond of this website. They have a number of glossaries, so kind of obscure words in English or different categories in English and lots of words from that category. And one of them, the first one I actually came across, is a word list, types of government.
Okay.
So I kind of had a bit of a look at this to see if there was anything I could use to describe my describe the system I came up with. But I mean I found this ages ago. Right. And it's a very, very fun list. Do you want to hear a few of them, see if you can figure out what they are?
Oh, guessing games. You know I love my guessing games. Right, go for it. Okay,
so I'll give you an easy enough one at the start.
Oh God, no. The pressure.
Diarchy.
A diarchy. Would this be some sort of monarchy with two heads of equal power?
Yeah, government by two people.
Yeah, 1-0 to Edgar.
Ecclesiarchy.
Something to do with ecclesiastical? So, well, hang on now. That's religious, but that would be a theocracy. A religious monarchy?
Government by clerics or ecclesiastical authority. Plutocracy.
Oh, I know this. Hold on. Or I read about this. No. I read about this in looking up political systems. I don't know. Hang on. Let me just try and logic it out. Something to do with Pluto? No, it's not. That's stupid, Edgar. Jesus Christ. In my head, I was thinking Plato. And then I said it and I was like, oh no, it's not Plato. It's Pluto. I have no idea. What is it?
A plutocracy is government by the wealthy.
Oh, how does that... Where does the word Pluto come from? Is that derived to mean wealth or money from somewhere?
Let's find out. Plutocracy Wiktionary. Yeah, Plutos is wealth in Greek, apparently.
Oh, okay.
And Kratos is like power, as in all of these. Kleptocracy.
I know this one. This is one of the strange ones I came across. It's ruled by thieves.
Ruled by thieves, very good.
Yeah, for kleptomania, that's quite an easy one. Yeah. Find one on the list that you think would be borderline impossible to get. A really difficult one.
Like a really difficult one for you to guess.
Yeah, a really difficult one to try and logic out. How crazy does it go?
Well, here's one. I can't see the etymology here. I don't know this. Iatrarchy.
Iatrarchy.
IAT. Or A-or-C-H-Y.
Iatrarchy. Jesus. Yeah, I can't see the etymology either. Okay, I'm going to take a pop. A system of government whereby the leaders are elected on the grounds of how much they love licorice.
Edgar's dream system.
There's an idea for political system. I have no idea. What is it?
Government by physicians. You know, like doctors. Okay, how many more do you want?
Oh, they know. Well, we might end it there, but they totally should have called it Doctrosity.
Hold on, I'll find a couple of funny ones.
Okay, go for it.
Bureaucracy.
No, governed by beer makers.
Yeah, government by brewers or brewing interest. You see, a lot of these will have been used like satirically by people over the thing. Will still have entered the lexicon. Diabolocracy. Diabolocracy. That's how do you pronounce that?
Diabolocracy. Rule by the devil.
Rule by the devil.
Boom. Metal.
Boom. Yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay, all right. Shall we call it there on that wonderfully?
Let's
metal
call it there.
So
we go to the green room.
No, not yet. Hold on. If you were to have a system of government based on licorice, though, what would you call it?
Well, what does licorice come from?
Yeah, let's look it up. What does licorice come from? I'm sorry, listeners. I'm really sorry. We've been here for an hour, but this is pressing stuff.
So licorice and aniseed are different. They're not the same thing. They're just.
I will take both though.
Hold on. Okay, well let's find what it is in Greek. Glycoriza. So glycorizarchy?
Glycorizarchy.
Glycorizarchy?
Yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome. I like it. That's gonna be my political system for Dagger. Alright, okay. Will we go to the green room?
Let's go to the green room.
I have, since the last time we talked, I have watched Firefly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now, counter to how Edgar usually talks about things after he watches them, Firefly is amazing.
Okay.
I love Firefly. Firefly is great. Like I was thinking about this. Like, all right, I gotta have some bad points to bring to Bill. I have no bad points. Like the only bad points I could say would be the way it was treated, the way the show was treated, like being aired out of order and not continued. Yeah. That's the bad things about it. Like, but the characters are really witty and like kind of at the start they're kind of dark and there's really nice storylines and you know it's really cool. And then the things that a lot of the critics were saying that were bad about it when it first came out, like the idea that they took the idea of a space western way too literally. Fine, don't care. The fact that you've spaceships and horses, I totally bought into that world watching it. No problem.
Yeah, that feels entirely consistent to me. Yeah. I really, I can't.
I would not fault them on that, and I think it's a really when you analyze, I think it's an interesting aesthetic to have, and the idea of having the revolvers and things like that as well. Fine, totally fine.
It makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and I don't think that's. If you go to the Wikipedia page, you'll see people criticize that. I think that's a completely invalid criticism. I think it's great. The characters are great. They've it's just everything about that show is absolutely amazing, and I was genuinely very sad that I can't watch anymore. You know. So I just want to bring it up. I have nothing negative to say. You've watched it. Have you got bad things to say about it?
I was severely misled about how cool River Tam was. Like she does barely any violence in the show.
She does do barely. Yeah, compared to the movie, she does barely any violence.
Even in the movie, she doesn't do that.
Oh, she has that thing. Well, she has a thing in the.
There's like 2 scenes in the film.
Yeah, to be fair, I did fall asleep halfway through that film. So. But
and Mal, I don't know. Mal's kind of an idiot.
But he's a lovable goon. Like you're kind of like Mal.
I don't like how he is to Inara.
Now this is an interesting thing. Myself and the captain had a discussion about that. You can read into it an awful lot that he's very derogatory towards her, and
he's very patronizing
as well. And I think that's a totally valid analysis of what's going on. But I think I think he's not a perfect character at all, right? And I think he's very flawed emotionally. And he clearly cares for Inara. And he just doesn't have the like emotional intelligence to be able to do it properly, so he like reverts to these like schoolboy tactics. Not saying it's a good thing or anything, but beneath all of that, I think there's a genuinely caring, loving relationship, and I think that's what gives that situation a little bit more complexity.
Yeah, but I mean, he thinks he knows what's best for her, and it's really, I don't know, it's really.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
Yeah, no, there's problems. There is problems there. There is problems there, definitely. But I think the redeeming thing about it is that for me is that the underlying thing. If there wasn't that underlying thing, I would just be like, that's terrible writing. It's just not good. But yeah, there's one scene. This I can't remember what it was. But myself and the captain had this discussion, and immediately after having the discussion, we pressed play again on the episode, and the immediate next scene resolved this, and both myself and the captain looked at each other and went, "Oh yeah, no, okay, we get it. He's not a pig to her. He just is emotionally unintelligent and a bit ham-fisted in the way he does things." I take that criticism. But I don't think it's as bad as it could potentially be.
Yeah, no, I mean, he could be worse, but I don't know. He just thinks he knows what's best for him. He doesn't actually listen to her side of things.
No. This is true. I do like the way Inara though as well. I like the way they've set up the like she's a companion.
Yeah.
But she's like a powerful companion, you know what I mean? Like you could really you could really easily write that in a very, again, derogatory sense, but they've given her like a power, and she's just a really, really strong character. Really like Inara.
Yeah, she's a sex worker, but she's not abject. She's
I think that then they came that whole shtick around the whole like lore around how companions work. I think is a very interesting twist on the sort of like Wild West sort of how sex workers would be. I think that was a really good and progressive thing what they did there. And it's the same with all of the female characters as well on that show. Like the engineer, what's her name? Kaylee. Kaylee is another strong, very strong female character. And then of course, I forget her name. Wash's wife. What's her
Zoe?
Zoe, that's it. She's obviously a hugely strong and influential female character. So I think
badass.
Yeah, total badass. Overall, I think it's great. The only thing actually now that I think about it, that I don't like is Wash, the blonde fella, the pilot.
The pilot.
Yeah, purely because I only see him as one of the sort of squires in A Knight's Tale. Did you ever see that movie?
I've never seen that.
Yeah, so he plays a very kind of like slapstick comedic role, and I look at that actor and all I see is slapstick and comedy, and I don't see kind of like, you know, like a smuggler in him. So I think the casting was slightly wrong there.
You should watch a film called Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Tucker.
Do you know this?
I don't. That sounds glorious.
It stars Alan Tudyk, the guy who plays Wash.
Right.
And it's I won't say too much about it, but you know that horror film which is the teenagers go to a cabin in the woods and like horror happens.
It does.
It is a spin on that, and it is very, very good.
Is it a horror film?
It's a horror comedy.
Okay. That makes me think that I'm not going to watch it. I can't stand horror films. Because they make this I'm going to sound not very hard here, but they make me feel really uncomfortable. I don't like being scared.
Okay, well, it's kind of parodic.
It's good. What?
It's a parody.
Oh yeah, okay, right. If it's not a genuinely like jump scary, unsettling thing, then yeah,
no,
I might give.
No, like it's not genuinely scary. It uses those ideas to kind of satirize them and stuff, but it's not trying to make you jump.
Okay, then I might actually give it a crack. But if it's regular horror, I'm just like, nah, that's just, I don't know why you would sit here for 2 hours and feel uncomfortable. But yeah, why should I watch this?
Because it's got him in, and it's maybe a bit slapsticky in parts, and he's really good in it, and it's a very funny movie. Yeah,
he's good. Like, and I get that Firefly in many ways is a comedy, and that means that his casting isn't so bad. But yeah, I just associate him with kind of like, very slapstick, and that doesn't quite work for me in Firefly. It's the only criticism I have. That really is the only criticism. Oh, and on the river issue you raised there, I can only assume that had the show been allowed to go on, they would have developed her further.
They fucking wanted to.
Yeah, but I was assuming that they were building up to something. It was a long, overarching storyline, and it just got cut. So I'm totally with you as well that her stuff. She seems a bit like a strange character. She doesn't really do anything, and her storyline just ends abruptly when the season ends. And I think that's Fox's fault, not Firefly's fault. You know?
Yeah.
But overall, very good. Now, so having finished watching that, I moved on to the next TV series, and that is Stargate.
Oh, okay.
I've decided to watch all 11 of those seasons, which is...
Of Stargate SG-1?
SG-1, yeah. And then
you have to watch Atlantis.
And then we'll see about Atlantis.
And then you have to watch Stargate Universe.
There's a lot. So, just really quick initial thoughts, just so people in the subreddit can disagree with my sentiments.
As per.
Yeah, because it always happens. I just have weird tastes. I don't understand. You don't get it? I get like, I know where it came from the movie, and I get the whole setup. I don't get why this is a thing.
You don't get the appeal.
I don't really get the appeal. I'm told that as the seasons go on, it gets a lot better. But the first season it's marred with kind of like unimpressive storylines, kind of terrible acting, lack of sort of originality. And I know people are going to be like, yeah, but look, they're using Egyptian mythology and sci-fi. That may be the case, but there's very many cases where it's kind of like, oh, I've seen this storyline on Star Trek, the original series. They seem to be rehashing a lot of cliched sci-fi things.
Okay.
So I'm more than happy to give this a go. I think it has the potential to become very good, and I'm told it will get very good. I'm told that the first season is rocky, and so far, that is what I'm experiencing. It's quite rocky. So yeah, that's my report so far. As always, once I finish a thing, I will report back to you and the listeners to let you know how it's going.
Cool.
All right. So, 3 hours in. do you want to call it there?
I think I should call it there and go to work.
Yeah, I need to eat before work as well.
Cool.
So, as always, thank you, man, and thanks to the listeners for listening, and I will see you next time, yeah?
My pleasure, yeah.
All right, talk to you later, bro.
Catch you later, dude.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh god, the cat nearly fell out of the tree.